Live, I believe. So welcome everybody who's joined us already. We're going to get started just in a minute, just to sort of some housekeeping, shall we say. We've got the live chat over on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have any questions, I am your host, and I will be looking through these questions and taking them either as they come or saving some for the end. We'll see how we'll go, see how we go as we go along. So as we wait for other people to join, probably a good idea for us to introduce ourselves. So my name's Abby, and I am Senior Product Marketing Manager at Grip. Been here for just over a year now, but my background is in events and event organisation. So yeah, glad to have you all here with us. Who else have we got in the room?
Who wants to go next? I guess I'll volunteer myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Shelly. I am on the enablement team at Grip. I've also been here just over a year, also with a background in events. So a really nice, happy place for me where I get to do fun tech stuff and also support event success.
Lovely.
I'll go next. I'm Jodie. I'm on the solutions team here at Grip. So speaking to lots of clients every day to see what they want and how we can deliver it. I've been at Grip for over 2 years now, so I'm fully invested into everything here.
Very much a pro.
Yeah, and I kind of, I've been at Grip for a bit longer. So I'm Tim. I'm the founder and CEO of Grip and started the company about 7 years. I don't have a background in events. I have no idea how I ended up in events, but loving every moment of it now that I'm in it. So yeah, great to be here.
Lovely. Thanks for the introduction. So we're 2 minutes past, and for those of you who have just joined us, any questions, please send them in. That's what we're here for. We're here to answer your questions, your burning questions about meeting programs, which is the topic of today. Use the chat feature over on the right-hand side of your screen, and we are very grateful for your interaction. So on with the show. Today, as you know, we're talking about mastering meetings. And when we say meetings, we're not talking about sitting in an office, round a table. We're talking about meeting programs at your events. And just to set the scene, give us a bit of context, we know that this year especially is going to be quite hard. Not that we haven't had a hard few years anyway as event professionals, but the pressure is really on now with the cost of living crisis to deliver on return on investment, revenue and connections that count to help businesses that are attending your events survive the next sort of few years and grow as well. So there's some stats there as well about marketers needing to provide ROI more than ever before to justify their event spend. We know that since 2019, there's also been a reduction in revenue from events. And of course, this was, post-COVID, us coming back to in-person. It's on the up, but there's definitely still a reduction in revenue there. And then also 43% of companies not being happy with the amount of meetings and leads that are being delivered at events. And so this is where we find ourselves. So meeting programs are being adopted sort of more and more by event organizers to help drive revenue, prove ROI for the exhibitors, and also better satisfaction for those people in attendance that are spending that money on and their time on attending the events. Not to mention the fact that meeting programs are very, very good for you as event organizers too. So your sales team are going to be happy with meeting programs because they're going to have a higher ROI for the paying suppliers, their exhibitors, which is going to help them drive revenue to the events and hopefully increase rebookings as well based on the success of those events. For the marketing team within your organization, higher quality meetings for buyers means much better satisfaction scores, so increasing that NPS for them. And operations, reducing operational overhead. Although you think of perhaps meeting programs and certainly spend on event tech as being in addition, actually this is going to save your operations team time on delivering and streamlining the customer journey as well. And last but not least, the management of your event organizations, strengthening competitive position, increasing revenue, everyone loves that, and of course, year-on-year growth, which is where we want to see the events market going. So what do meeting programs look like? What do we mean by meeting programs? So we've sort of bunched them into 3 different types. So we've got manual or free flow meeting programs. I'll just talk you through individually what each of these mean. So manual meeting programs, this is allowing people to connect with one another in advance of your event, contact one another, add meetings to their schedules before the event takes place. So rather than relying on people turning up to the event and, it's all busy and bustling and the sort of show floor's heaving, but, where do you go? Who are you meeting with? So this allows people to look at the directories, whether that's suppliers or buyers, find who they want to meet with, reach out, connect with the people that they want to meet with, wait for them to come back to them, but to come back to the request, and then those meetings can be arranged. So then we've got the strategic meeting program. So again, meetings scheduled in advance, we've got that. But then this is about mutual matching. So a lot of this is automated, that sort of, you want to meet you want to meet this person, you want to meet that person as well. Brilliant. Let's match them up. Then you've got automated scheduling. As I said, this means that you as organizers are not doing that manual process of going through a spreadsheet and who said yes to whom and whatever. This is automated as well. And then hosted by, which some of you will be familiar with the term, similar to strategic meeting programs, only the buyers at this event are usually paid for. So that means that they've got their hotel, flights, their meals, probably networking functions, all paid for by the organizer. And quite frankly, the difference between the two is marginal. It's just that payment for the buyers, but we know that a lot of organizers simply don't have the budget to be able to host their buyers, which is why we focus on these 2 different types, hosted and not hosted, similar types of that automated scheduling. So hopefully that makes sense so far. Pause for breath. We're going to be looking at those two last categories mostly today, but obviously we are here to talk about the bread and butter as well of meeting scheduling, which is where GRIP comes in. Yes, Tim.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because I think that middle step, the strategic meeting program, Abby, and you explained it so well, that's such an important one, right? Because organizers say hosted buyer, and then they think, that's a certain, forget, you could also have a kind of structured meeting program and the strategic meeting program without hosting the buyer. And I was actually having a meeting with the CEO of a major organizer earlier this week, and they were saying exactly the same thing. They were like, hey, we could do meeting programs. We don't necessarily have to host them. It means that we need to call it differently than a hosted buyer meeting program.
Exactly.
So, that gap is what we need to fix.
And I think that's very interesting, because actually that strategic or structured meeting program, there's still a lot of names for it about, this is smart meeting program. This is, mutual matching, double opt-in meetings. There's lots of names for it, but however you want to call it, this is what we're going to discuss today. So next, let's get on to the sort of the structure of the meeting program, sort of beginning to end. Now, it requires a lot of planning. There's quite a lot of steps that need to happen before that live event phase, and then indeed that post-event phase. And we're going to use this that you're looking at now, this timeline, as it were, as kind of our agenda. But record skip. Firstly, we're going to talk about the design, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point, because you're going to want to see my lovely meeting expert colleagues here as they talk you through the design of meeting programs. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made at this point. So the number of participants that you're going to invite, length of meeting, length of program. Is it virtual? Is it in person? If it's in person, where are you going to have these meetings? Is it a separate location? Is it such a lot to think of? Jodie, I'm going to come to you first. Where does one start with thinking about these meeting programs? How do you start planning?
I think it's a really key question, and the best place to start is actually just thinking about your audience, what their wants are, what their needs are. You can't really design this without at least looking back and understanding, okay, so actually what do our suppliers really need? Do they need 1 hour hosted meetings that are with just 4 suppliers and really long ones? Or do they want quick intros with as many people as possible to try and nail down exactly what they're looking for? So I think the key is actually researching your audience, researching where it can fit into your event, and actually taking a look at the pain points from both of your buyers and suppliers, or whoever your audience might be.
Great answer. What about the numbers? So when it comes to what works and what doesn't, can I have a meeting program with 3,000 people involved, or is it limited to a smaller number?
So I think that the most interesting way to look at that is that, similar to what Jody said, it depends. And actually, it's about getting those different ratios right. And actually, we built actually at Grip a nice little calculator that you can use to actually figure out whether the ideas that you're having in terms of number of buyers, suppliers, length, slots, and so forth can actually work together as part of a meeting program. So the reality is you can do 3,000 buyers, but it means that you probably need at least, let's say, 500 suppliers as well. And that means that you need actually quite a high number of meeting slots. And so that means like meeting slots, meaning, one slot might be from 9 to 9:15. And so, if you've got that amount of meetings, you have to figure out what these ratios are and how you can solve this kind of optimization problem to create a really good automated meeting schedule. So lots of thoughts and kind of considerations going into that in order to get it right.
And then what about the sort of groups of people? Because when I think about a trade show, especially Tim, you and I speak quite often about in fact, Jody, you're involved in the presentation, ecosystem events. You're talking about a lot of different segments of an industry. How do you make sure that a meetings program is a success when you've got this very diverse group of people? Tim, I'm going to go back to you for that.
Yeah. So I think that the reality is that if you want to start with introducing some kind of automated meeting program, you want to start with as much as possible a homogeneous group of buyers and suppliers. And what I mean with that is that, let's say, for example, PCMA, convening leaders, right? The big events for the events industry. We do the host and buy program there. And so there are 38 suppliers, and almost all of them are destinations, except for 2 tech companies. And so, for the destinations, that's really easy because they're all destinations. So therefore, you can get buyers that are looking for destinations, and you automatically result in a very nice group. So you can do it from a kind of, hey, we want a certain amount of suppliers that are kind of similar, or you can look at it from a buyer perspective. So looking at historic data within the platform, but also just going to speak with buyers and saying, okay, what type of companies are they looking to meet with? And that's actually my favorite approach. So you go and speak with your key buyers, with your VIPs, say, who are you looking to meet with? And if I gave you 5 meetings with that types of company, would you do that? And they'll be like, yeah, sure. I'd love that because it's super time efficient for me. I've got a great environment where I can have these conversations. It's nicely structured. It's time efficient. So starting with the buyer's intent of who they are looking to meet with from a supplier perspective, and then actually kind of afterwards going to the suppliers and being able to say, hey, I've got buyers that want to have meetings, not with any company, not with any supplier, but with you. I have vetted them. I know they want to meet with you. And that's a really powerful way to do it. So going buyer first and defining that group it can be really powerful.
And it doesn't have to be just buyer and supplier, does it, Shelley? You in the planning for this, you mentioned that it's any kind of two-way meeting, right?
Yeah, I think a really fun use case for this kind of model is really some peer-to-peer networking, and really valuable intentional networking as opposed to just kind of passing out business cards and hoping for the best. I think being able to use this kind of concept of a double opt-in or a mutual interest is huge for things just like building relationships, and it could lead to a sale. But as opposed to that really traditional buyer to seller relationship, you're able to accomplish really great, valuable interactions on a peer-to-peer level, which I think is a really great kind of supplemental thing to be able to offer at events, especially for things like association events, where maybe it isn't so much of a sales floor. It's more of networking and growing and learning together. It's a really great use case for that kind of program.
Absolutely love that, and we call that any to any at Grip. There's sort of anybody can meet anybody depending on who you want to. So what about integrating this? Let's say I'm an event organizer and I want to start thinking about including meeting programs, but I already have I have quite a solid event program. Where does this fit into the marketing and sales strategies of my existing events, let's say?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this. I think, especially kind of looking back at what Jody and Tim have already offered, is I think your lowest barrier to entry and your least liability option is to tack it onto an event you're already doing, as opposed to reinventing the wheel and trying to build out a whole new marketing campaign and funnel. What their point is, and I think is so relevant, is look at your audience who's already engaged and participating and already attending. They're already making that investment for the actual show itself, physically going to be there unless it's virtual, and then they're already going to be on their computer. And it's a really nice way to be able to add additional revenue to an event that you've already kind of built out the foundation for. It's a really nice VIP white glove kind of service and add-on with really high value and high volume meetings in a really condensed time. So we see great success with our clients who have like a 4 to 6 hour meeting block the day before, the day after one of their big shows. Because again, you're already there, and to add those super, super high value meetings without having to reorganize on the organizer side or the attendee side is a huge win for both parties.
Mm-hmm. Tim, based on that, these are potentially people that you've already got coming to your events. They're already stakeholders in your events. Potentially this could be an add-on to attract more people like the ones that you've got engaged.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's a very good point, Abby, that you're making, right? Like, and kind of, what Shelley was referring to. There's a real opportunity to use these VIP meeting programs to attract more VIPs, because actually the reality is there is quite a lot of trade shows and conferences where there is actually the real VIPs might not attend anymore because they're not getting that return on time that they have actually looked for historically at those events. And so there is a real opportunity to make sure that they re-engage and actually get those VIPs to come back to your event. And as Shelley was saying, you can do it, and we advise customers, right? Do it the day before or the morning of your event. But also, like, yesterday I was with an organizer, and they do a big event in May, and then they do multiple what they call deal maker events throughout the year. And those are kind of 200 to 400 people, kind of meeting programs almost. And so there are kind of multiple different ways to introduce this to your community. But a great first step is definitely do it day before or day of the event.
And I think that's interesting. Going back to where we started from, is that that hyper focused on a particular topic with a particular type of sort of a segment of the industry as well. That's really interesting to people, and so that that really lends itself actually to those sort of meeting programs at intervals throughout the year when it's not the whole group, and you could be having different segments at different times of the year depending on what the segments are.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, let's say that I am a big financial services event organizer, right? And I run a major kind of convex. I might have geo-localized it, so I might do one in Europe and one in the US, and I might want to do one in Asia. But in addition to that, I might say, hey, I'm going to do a meeting program the day before, day of, or something like that. Or maybe what I will also do is start doing these kind of more specific meeting programs, and I'm going to do one for cybersecurity and financial services. I'm going to do one for insurance. I'm going to do one for any kind of other kind of sub-segment of my event audience and my ecosystem that I can actually connect with each other. So yeah, you can really kind of iterate as far.
Yeah, and I think obviously this gives you more opportunities to drive revenue, but also sponsorship, right, Jody?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a key area. You can offer it in multiple different ways. I mean, we've seen events that the whole structured meeting program has been sponsored by one key person, and they essentially cover that entire area. They then get loads of obviously audience driven to them as well, because they are a key factor. But I think as well, some other things that haven't been touched on is that even the suppliers that potentially have a lower budget, they might only opt in for a few meetings. So they have a smaller selection, they pay a little bit less, but actually they're still getting this benefit out of it. And they can almost do a trial run first, whereas you can sell bigger packages that maybe come with other areas of sponsorship for the event that have 20 meetings for them. So I think there's lots of other areas, and it just adds a whole new market for exhibitors and suppliers who want to sponsor. And great revenue idea.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I've just looked at the time. I can't believe that we've had nearly half of the time already. I'm not seeing any questions come in, but I am going to move on to the body of the agenda just now. Shelley, I can see that your internet connections are dropping in and out. I will say that, apologies on behalf of you, but you are having a lovely a US team retreat at the moment. So thank you for taking time out of that to join us. So okay, so let's get on. So we've designed, let's say we've marketed our event, we know who's coming, we've looked into that. We're now getting people through the door. So we refer to this as the meeting preference phase, but this incorporates anything from registration through to people making their preferences, of course, and also qualifying buyers to attend, or exhibitors to attend, so that only the best meetings take place. Because obviously, as we say, those satisfaction scores are only going to be high if people are getting the meetings that they actually want. So any advice on approaching the selection of participants to join this meeting program?
I think the key thing with selecting who you want to be part of your program is making sure, again, for your audience, making sure that actually buyers, they own their own budget, they have that purchasing power, and they are serious buyers, versus allowing anyone who might just be interested in attending the event, they want to see what's on extra. We've seen that before. It doesn't work because they might get distracted midway through and just not turn up for their meetings. But on the other side of it, suppliers as well, they need to be serious. They need to make sure they're well presented, make sure they're turning up with the right information to give to buyers. And I think you can't combat all of it, but having a strict vetting process, making sure their application is serious to take part in it and actually they are committed to it, is really key. Otherwise, it downfalls later and there's a lot more work to be done during the meeting process.
Yeah, brilliant points there, I think. Now, before we get on to the preference phase, having completed profiles for people to choose from is really essential for meeting program success. So, how can people decide who they want to meet if they don't have all the information in front of them? But we also know that, as ex-event organisers ourselves, it's very difficult to get that engagement, to encourage that engagement. Have you seen any good examples of how to encourage this engagement with the meeting program in advance, and even how to get people to complete their profiles up front before you move on to the next phase?
Who wants to take that one? Jody, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the key thing with doing that is just making sure you're driving people to update their profile, making sure you consistently speak and reach out to them to say, actually, the more you put into this, the more you're going to get out. If you go in with an empty profile with very little information, how do you expect your buyer or supplier to actually want to know if they want to meet you? They're just seeing a face, a name, and maybe a company name. Make sure that information's there. And from an organizer perspective, make sure you're asking the right questions to your participants as well. The wrong questions aren't going to really give the right results to the buyers and suppliers.
I've seen some really good examples of, as well as meeting programs, just encouraging anyone to engage with event technology in advance of the event, is also putting exclusive content on there in advance. So maybe that's a session that's on, that's on as a kind of teaser before the event, something to actually get them to log in and start engaging with it from the offset, I think is really good.
And I think that actually for first-time participants, right, if you've got a buyer that is for the first time participating in your meeting program, I would do an onboarding call. I would do a 15, 20-minute call where you actually talk them through the form, help them fill out their profile, get them familiar with it, and get that set up. Because that 15 to 20-minute investment, if you do that, then the number of support queries and the number of support they'll need during all the kind of subsequent phases will drastically decrease. So I think that upfront investment can really help make sure that from there on, not just for this event, but for any future event, you're going to have a much more streamlined and easier time with the people that you've onboarded successfully.
Nice. Plus that sort of white glove concierge thing, it always goes down a treat anyway. Yeah. It makes them feel cared for from the outset. So yeah, great tips there. So what about this setting of preferences, choosing of preferences? Now, I personally have attended shall not be named, events where you have to make a serious number of preferences. And when you've got large numbers of either buyers or suppliers in attendance, this becomes very difficult, because you have to, you're talking hours and hours of time that has to be taken in order to find the people that maybe you're interested in meeting, and filters only go so far. So what about, the setting of preferences? Are there top tips on how to set up for these preferences? What's the optimum number of buyers or suppliers that should be chosen, or should be, what's the word? Well, made preferences on, for want of another dreadful way of explaining it. But anyway.
Shelley, you want to take that?
I was gonna say, I don't know if my Wi-Fi has come back, but I think it's okay, cool. It's important that especially with Tim's recommendation of a white glove, and really being able to kind of lay the preference foundation of the more information you provide to us to make those mutual interest meetings, the more that both parties benefit. Really, like, you don't want someone to meet with someone that the other party doesn't want to meet with, because then they're kind of trudging along. That double opt-in concept of both people are mutually benefiting from this meeting is super important. And being able to say no is also really important. I think if your only options are yes or no answer, you're kind of left to infer and assume things that perhaps can backfire. So being able to allow people to opt out of meeting with people that maybe they don't think are a right fit based on that information on that profile is also just as important as being able to say, oh my gosh, yes, I must meet with them. Because those are both really powerful preferences and kind of weight you can take into, especially when you're making that schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think there's, kind of to clarify, right? Like, I think that, as Shelley kind of alluded to, on GRIP, we do must meet, and no thanks. So you can be very explicit about saying to people that no thanks, I don't want to meet with them, but also kind of have those two layers of must meet and meet. Well, like, and this is very different than, what sometimes happen, which is, hey, we've got please prioritize all people within the event. So you might have 100 suppliers and you need to prioritize 100 of them. That's for a human is really, really hard. And the best kind of comparison is, like, let's say that I ask you to rank the 100 restaurants in London that you know. It's really hard to do. You can tell me which ones are good and which ones are bad, but it's really hard to rank them 1 to 100. And that's a really kind of powerful way to think about how allowing people to choose between kind of good and bad is helpful, but kind of asking people to rank can be really quite tricky for them. And so getting the right limits and the right amount of preferences is super important.
Yeah. That's really useful, I think. And for us British people who are so over polite, I think no thanks doesn't have to just be, oh, I don't want to meet with you, there's no business. It's also, perhaps you've met before, perhaps this is not the forum in which you want to be discussing this, perhaps you intend to have a longer time with them another time. It can be anything. So I think, don't think of no thanks as a negative. This potentially is a positive move.
It's anonymous as well, right? So you don't have to tell the other person that somebody has no thanks. So it's anonymous.
P.S. product plug. We have got something coming up where you can decline meetings with a note as well. So it's going to make it easier too.
Look at that.
Okay, so let's move on to the next segment, which is meeting generation. So adjusting for the success of the program, and of course then the finalization of participant diaries. But actually at GRIP we have another layer. Now this is all to do with the automation part, but I'm sure that this could be done manually, with some calculations, very clever calculations as well. Can you tell us a bit about this score generation before the meetings themselves are generated, Shelley?
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about kind of how people have made their preferences, now you go, okay, and now what? What do I do with this information? And what I like to conceptualize is that you have to determine, and this is based on the research that you've done based on Jody's suggestions and how Tim has talked about, like, this exclusive VIP experience, you get as the organizer to dictate, is there a parity in scoring? Are your buyers more valuable than your suppliers in terms of whose preference has more weight to it? Are your suppliers who are sponsoring, do they have, kind of that last say and are their scores weighted a bit more heavily, or is it just a really equal 50-50? Or if it's that peer networking, is it really just based on, a generic overall score? But it's important that you determine if there's going to be a weight, how you calculate that, and that helps dictate, is someone's schedule full or less full based on the number of people involved, the scoring that's been generated, and that really helps clarify and really provide clarity around rating and scoring as the organizer. Do my participants have good quality meetings based on this mutual kind of valuable score?
I think that's great, and that idea that in advance you can see whether these are going to be A star, A+ meetings, or if they're going to having that insight into, are these going to be average meetings or are these going to be excellent meetings, is really, really key. Yeah. Tim, do you want to add anything?
No, definitely. No, I mean, Shelley did an incredible job kind of covering it there. Like, it's like, the whole concept of kind of creating meetings based on these preferences sounds good, but it is really hard to A, do that from a system point of view, and B, being able to then actually evaluate the quality of that schedule in a holistic way as an organizer. And we've just seen that now that we've abstracted that away and just turned it into a meeting score for every single combinational buyer and supplier, that the quality of the schedules have become much better. It's been easier for organizers to evaluate it. And it's possible to review the quality of this meeting schedule that you've generated every single time. And that means, in the long term, we might be able to generate these meeting scores without anybody having done any preferences. Because maybe we can just look at our AI and our historic data, and maybe we can just do it based on that. So this is kind of a very revolutionary approach, and something that we're like very proud that we've been able to kind of create that. So it's very exciting.
So, what about if we've got some exhibitors who nobody wants to meet with? Jodie, what would I do if I'm an organizer and I see that actually they've got no scores so far?
I mean, I think the first thing is don't panic, because it will happen. It might be that they're completely new to the industry. No one has heard of them. And there's a load of really, really great suppliers that everyone wants to meet with. They might be new. That might be a last minute add-on. Someone bought a ticket the day before the preference is closing. That person isn't going to know that no one selected, they don't want to meet with them. However, if you used our system, you'll be able to see, what they are this industry, this is what they're looking at, this is their budget, this is what they're looking to buy, this is the locations, and you'll be able to make informed decisions based on them and either create a meeting on their behalf or select some preferences towards them from buyers that you think might be interested. There will always have to be some tweaks that have to be made in this, and I think that that's okay, because although you've got a system that takes out majority of this manual process and gives you all that time, it means you can make it perfect from any anomalies that you see in there, or on the occasion that you might have one or two buyers or exhibitors who just don't have many preferences towards them.
I think that's a really good point. Oh, sorry, Shelley, go on.
I was going to say, just to add on to that, I think something that is super, super important, especially for a case like that, is that you're collecting really valuable information during that kind of initial registration and kind of opt-in process to give you that power and that knowledge to make those kind of fill in the gap meetings, or to be able to make better, more educated inferences about schedules if they have to be adjusted. You don't want to do that blind. And so if you're able to get really pertinent and relevant information during that initial profile configuration, if you do have that last minute addition or someone drops out and you kind of shuffle around some meetings, if you have their buying timeline or their budget or what they're looking to do next, it really does help make that process a little bit less daunting. So you can kind of set yourself up for success from the jump. That way, when life happens and things kind of shift, you're prepared for that.
Mm-hmm. So I was going to ask the question of how much tweaking should be done. I suppose that depends on again, back to what we said at the start, which is the objectives. What looks like success to you. Tweak on on the basis of that. I'm going to move on to the next slide. We've only got 10 minutes left, actually. I'm not seeing any questions come in. Now's your opportunity. Send them over in the chat box over to the right there. So, live event. This is going to be a quick fire round. We've all been to live events. what we do for a living. So so let's just go quickly on top tips for meeting program success at the live event. I'm going to go to Jodie first.
Making sure people actually turn up. So making sure everyone is there the day before, making sure they know where to turn up to, where they need to be, what time. The worst way to start off a structured meeting program is everyone missing their first meetings.
How to do that? How to get everyone through the door? Tim?
Doing a lunch or kind of some kind of thing beforehand so people are all kind of in the right place. The best meetings are scheduled at the beginning and the end. So that also really helps with kind of slot prioritization. And we just posted a link here in the chat, which is actually a great checklist of all the different meeting area things that you should get right. So definitely do take a look at that as well.
And make sure to follow up with these links afterwards as well in the wrap up of this. Okay, Shelley, another point, live event. What's going to make it a success?
Anticipate extra people, extra seating. If someone brings their colleague on either the buyer or the supplier, the any side, always have some additional seating available if people bring some guests with them for their meetings. That way they're not awkwardly standing around. Little small but mighty.
Love that. I would never have thought of that. That's a brilliant one. Okay, anyone else? Top tips? Go.
Sensible meeting area. Actually having a quiet space that is still busy. Obviously, you're going to have people, meetings everywhere, making sure it's suitable. Don't have it right somewhere next to a stage where you can't hear the other person you're speaking to, because there's so much stuff going on. Make sure it's suitable to actually have one-to-one meetings.
Yeah. Tim, you're going to say something?
Yeah. So numbering is 1 to, let's say you've got 4 rows, do like 1 to 5, and then the next row start with the same side. So don't snake the numbers, but like start on the same side with numbers all the time, and then have on the side of your kind of meeting grid or where the tables are, have some kind of refreshment area with seats, so that if people do have a gap in their meeting schedule, they stay in the room and they don't leave. Because once they leave, it's more difficult to get them to come back again.
Yeah, refreshments, teas, coffees, sustenance. Very good. I'm going to add one. So good Wi-Fi, so that they don't have to leave to go and answer their emails or whatever. We know that people are coming to events and they are multitasking quite often. So good Wi-Fi essential. Anyone anymore?
I'll do one last fun one. This may seem obvious, but good signage is huge. Take the guesswork out. To Tim's point, when you're numbering things, make sure that every table has its own number. You maybe have endpoint numbers, so you can quickly glance at and go, my table is that 3rd row off to the 4th. That's the one thing no one's kind of meandering around trying to find tables. They can know exactly where they're going based on your beautiful, clear signage.
Great. So let's go on to our last session, and thank you very much for all those very, very quick top tips. So let's look at the post-event phase now. So now we're talking about, hopefully your meetings have been a fantastic success. How do you know that they've been great? How are you collecting feedback? Any good examples of how to collect the information that is going to help you assess it afterwards?
I'll jump in on that. I am a huge fan of kind of post-event feedback, but I think with this type of program, it may not be like a 1-week post-event kind of a thing. I think almost like a 6-month post-event feedback. Those meetings you had in January, come summer, have those relationships evolved? Have they led to business deals? Have they led to, purchases and acquisitions and who knows what? But that's not going to happen 1 week post. And I think that a realistic kind of gap between the event closing and a nice kind of runway of time and going, what did you think of those meetings? Is a huge way to be able to analyze that success in a way that maybe isn't just a quick phone call, but some kind of qualitative or quantitative survey.
Yep. And anyone else? I mean, obviously there's a lot of data collected if you're using a provider such as Grip. What's best practice with these exports and data? What are you doing with it afterwards? You've got these ratings. What do you do with it next?
I mean, I think even initially you can use a rating feature to see if there's a common trend in any buyers or suppliers that either did an outstanding job, everyone was really impressed, they're outstanding. Those are the people that you might initially want to go and speak to and say, actually, let's use you as a great example and we'll keep in touch and follow up, as Shelley said later on, to really turn them into that success story for the program. But also negative trends in terms of buyers and suppliers. If there's anyone that maybe was not so prepared or maybe didn't do such a good job or consistently miss meetings, you go, okay, maybe we don't invite them back next year. I think that's the initial thing that you can just start doing without even having that qualitative information that you gain later on down the line. So seeing that, and it's a great way to capture it there and then, just for that initial feedback.
I agree. And then, sorry, Tim, you were going to say something.
Well, I think that maybe one point for the exhibitor side is the kind of lead scoring and lead notes. So being able to use the platform for that. And so when you're actually then at the end of your meetings, you can just export all of that with the notes, with the scores, and just upload that straight to your CRM system. And actually making sure that you are kind of facilitating that and helping exhibitors understand that that's kind of within the realm of possibilities is, I think, very helpful, because as an organizer, when exhibitors start using the product more proactively for scoring, for rating meetings and so forth, you'll get better data as well. So help them to help yourself. It's kind of the way to think about it, in my opinion.
And I think for rebookings, that data is absolutely key, because that's where you're going to be able to prove the success of the event and why they should come back. I think having that insight into what they've done is absolutely crucial as well. And then the last thing on this timeline here, I've brought it up again just as we end, so that people, if you missed it at the start, then you can see the planning stages of meeting programs again. But of course, if you have had any sessions and so on, being able to share the content afterwards is really good as well. So reconnecting with the topics, reconnecting with one another as well. Any tips on kind of keeping those connections going? How long should an event stay open, or an event platform stay open post-event?
I think it's quite an open question, because again, it really depends on the audience. If you are going to be consistently uploading content that's relevant towards your audience that you have in there, and if you want to maybe host like a networking afternoon that's more of an informal one, you can keep that open for a while. However, if you aren't planning on uploading anything new to the area, and actually your connections, then everyone's met each other, they've moved on, and from your audience that no one's going to be trying to network further, then I would say 30 days is a good time length. Otherwise, it's really however long you want to, but you have to put some from an organizer's perspective, there has to be effort that goes into it to make sure that the end users get their worth out of it as well.
And it's that giving people a reason, just as you said, you have to give them a reason to get on in the first place. I think bringing it full circle, it's that reason to come onto the platform, and once those reasons die off, then then they're not going to be logging on, because there isn't anything changing there. Anyone to add before we wrap up? We've got 3 minutes to go, still no questions. If you have any questions, please send them in now. This is your opportunity. Anyone, anything to add on any of what we've spoken about so far?
For all the meetings that I had this week with customers, and I've had like 7, 8, I'm doing a little tour here, and
Tim's in New York, by the way, everyone.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't say that. And everybody's talking about meeting programs and the potential that they hold. And so I think that it's clear that people are actively thinking about how they can do more to facilitate the conversation between event participants and also with exhibitors. So it's such a pivotal moment right now, I think, within the industry, to go beyond just the square footage and take that next step. I think this is kind of, in my opinion, this is kind of the moment of going from display advertisement in a magazine to turning it into like cost per click and cost per lead, right? Like the goalpost is moving for organizers, and it's moving to meetings. And so I think that that's kind of the key thing for organizers to think about. How are you going to make sure that the right people are in the room and the right conversations are happening, and being proactive and deliberate about that?
Well, I think that's a fabulous way to end this session today. Firstly, thank you everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate you attending. Of course, if you have any questions on meeting programs, these are the experts, and they would be more than happy to follow up after this session with more information. And we are always happy to help, even if it's just for a little bit of advice. So feel free to reach out to us. Secondly, thank you very much, panel, for joining me on this very important topic. Really appreciate the time that you've taken out of your calendars to join us as well. We'll be back next month with another webinar. This time it's going to be on adding better networking to your events, improving your networking capabilities at your events, allowing people to connect further. So thank you again for joining us. And with that, we shall wrap up. Enjoy the rest of your days, evenings, wherever you are. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.